My name is Andrés Serrano, and I'm gonna talk about sanctions in public international law and how these sanctions works in practice through the Lockerberry case. First, what do we mean when we say sanctions in public international law? Well, sanctions are the legal measures adopted by a state or international organization to influence a certain behavior on another state, entity, or person. In international law, sanctions are one of the main tools used to enforce obligations on another state. We know that states are connected by treaties, international customary law, and by the United Nations system. So when a state violates one of these obligations, sanctions are one of the main consequences. We know that there are different types of sanctions. First, we have economic sanctions. These could be like a bigger tariff imposed on another state. These could be limits on trade, banking, or investment with the state. Then we have diplomatic sanctions that, for example, could be withdrawal of ambassadors of a state. And then we have military related measures such as armed embargoes or collective actions authorized by the UN. The main idea is to induce compliance on another state that did a wrongful international action. We have many legal sources of sanctions in public international law. The main one is the UN Charter. Specifically, the second article says that you cannot use force. Then, Chapter 7 of the same charter says where the Security Council can decide if there is threat to peace and then impose such sanctions. Article 41 allows non-military sanctions, and Article 42 allows military measures if the mentioned sanctions did not work. And the 25th article says that these sanctions are legally bounding. We also see that customary international law accepts countermeasures, and countermeasures are reversible measures taken by a state against another state that committed an international wrongful act to induce compliance on them. So, in summary, sanctions are made to maintain order, discipline, and cooperation between states. So now I will explain how this framework operated in a real and very famous case that was the Lockerberry case. That was Libya against the US and the United Kingdom. And it all started with the bombing of a Pan Am flight number 103 over Scotterbury, Scotland on the 21st of December 1988, where 270 people died. And investigators concluded that the responsibles were two nationals of Libya. So the United States and the United Kingdom demanded that Libya extradite those suspects so they could face trial on their own courts. But Libya refused. They didn't want to extradite them, and they wanted them to face trial in the Libyan courts. And because of this refusal, the UN Security Council, acting under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, imposed strict economic and diplomatic sanctions on Libya. And these sanctions included restrictions on air traffic. They limited diplomatic relations and also limited economic activities like restrictions on trade and financial transactions with Libya. And this seriously affected the state's economic and international relations. Libya then defended themselves before the International Court of Justice in 1992, arguing that the suspects should face their trial in their own country, but the Security Council did not comply and they did not lift the sanctions. So after many years of negotiations, in 1999, Libya finally agreed to hand over the suspects to the US and to the United Kingdom to be tried on a neutral country that was Scotland. And later, in 2003, Libya accepted responsibility and compensated the victims' families, and sanctions were then lifted. So this is the main idea for sanctions. When a state does not comply, you put a sanction on the state until they comply, then you can lift the sanction. Thank you very much.